Welcome to G.I.Joe Chronicles, Outpost Edition.
I trust your mission was equally well executed.
I want a stone cold righteous attention.
Militarily speaking, it's only fair to say that Cobra Commander is a world-class buffoon.
Welcome to G.I.Joe Chronicles, Outpost Episode 8. I am Jim Meal, also known as Jim the Joe Junkie. Over the course of this podcast, we intend to chronologically discuss the toys, comics, cartoons, and many other aspects of G.I. Joe, our real American hero, which is my favorite pop culture subject. Without getting too bogged down in the details, just my co-host and I having a conversation and reminiscing. And joining me today to discuss these classic comics is Jason Alberich, the Weasel Skull. Thanks for making the trip to the Outpost, Jason, so that we can discuss more issues of a great comic. Since this is your first time to the Outpost, how were you introduced to G.I. Joe?
Oh, man, I came in with G.I. Joe on the ground floor in 1981. I remember going through probably a Kmart department store with my mom and dad, and they had a rack of those figures on there, and I begged and pleaded, and my little brother, Jared, Death Probe, was begging and pleading with me, and so we each got one. I got Stalker, and Jared got Snake Eyes, the original Snake Eyes. I remember this was pre-swivel arm and battle grip and everything. This was original Joe, and man, we were hooked from there. We were buying the toys, reading the comics. You know, we didn't have cable, but some of our friends did, going to our friend's house and watching the cartoons.
You were 1982, like you said, straight arm, easily broken thumbs, all that stuff.
Yep. Couldn't hold the gun anymore. Had to tape Snake Eyes Uzi in his hand. It was rough times.
Well, thank you, Jason. Before we get started, is there a special mission that has been declassified enough that you can share with us?
A declassified special mission. You know, I guess it's Operation Springtime. I dusted out from the pit. I brought up on the hydraulic support my electric lawnmower and mowed my yard for the first time in 2024. So I think that's probably the biggest accomplishment that I've done so far.
Yeah, I got out yesterday. I was looking out my back window and I realized I'm going to have to mow my grass soon. And I'm not sure if I like that. It's too early in the year.
Well, it's that time too where it rains here in Washington. You'll mow it and then it'll rain and then the sun will pop up and you can literally see it sprouting back up. It's like healing like Wolverine. You're like, dang it, I'm going to be back out again next weekend.
Yeah, it's raining in Michigan here today, but yesterday it was nice enough. I got the urge to get my Jeep Wrangler out because it's been sitting since October. I don't drive it in the wintertime.
Probably not the Jeep Wrangler.
It's a soft top, but it's still cold. Put air in the tires and got it running, and so it's ready for the next warm day. I'll take the doors off and take it out. My special mission, I was going through all my figures and vehicles to get ready for a show. Not my double vehicles, my triple and quadruple vehicles to get rid of them because I'm realizing I don't need that many. I realized that a lot of my figures had the O-ring had busted. So I recently went through and replaced a bunch of O-rings on my figures. This episode, we will be discussing the Marvel Comics issue 14 through 19 from 1983. As we go forward, we will attempt to stay in the calendar year that the comics were released in, but we will adjust the issues that we will be covering if we need to so that multiple issue stories are covered in the same episode. And we may not be reviewing the entirety of every issue. We will be discussing highlights of the issues, favorite moments, favorite covers, new characters that paid the ultimate sacrifice, and whatever else we feel like discussing. To make sure that we are giving each issue some attention, we go through each issue and state the issue title, a brief description of the story in that issue. We will be getting our information from yojo.com and 3djoes.com. So the first issue, issue 14, Destro Attacks. Scripter is Larry Hama, penciler Mike Vosberg, inker D'Agostino, letterer, I believe it's Joe Rosen, colorist Sheely, cover artist Trimpe. So the synopsis, Dr. Venom, Quinn, and Snake Eyes must work together to escape the sunken bunker. Dr. Venom opens a valve to allow water to enter into the bunker in hopes that equalizing the pressure will allow Quinn to open the door. Quinn is able to open the door and hold the door, but as Dr. Venom swims out, he hits Quinn with a wrench.
All right, I'll pick up issue 15, which is titled Red Eye to Miami. Here are the details. Writer is Larry Hama, penciler Mike Vosberg, inks is John D'Agostino, letterer is Rick Parker, colorist is Andy Yankas, editor Denny O'Neil, editor-in-chief Jim Shooter, and the cover artist was Denny O'Neil. Synopsis goes a little something like this. In Sierra Gordo, Snake Eyes Quinn and Dr. Venom have escaped from the underwater bunker they were trapped in. They are able to sneak out an airplane with Florida as their destination. Along the way, they are fighting each other the entire way. Finally, the trio crashes onto the beach in Miami where they are arrested. Cobra's lawyers are there quickly to bail out Dr. Venom. Meanwhile, in Springfield, Destro expresses his love to the Baroness and his plot to get Cobra Commander captured.
Issue 16, Night Attack. Details. The script by Larry Hama, pencils Mike Vosberg, inks John D'Agostino, letters Joe Rosen, colors Andy Yankas, editor Denny O'Neil, editor-in-chief Jim Shooter, and the cover artist was Mike Vosberg and John D'Agostino. Synopsis. The U.S. forces are protecting the Capitol building in Washington, D.C., when Cobra's actual target is the U.S. Treasury. As the battle rages at the Treasury with G.I. Joe, the Baroness crashes her hiss to avoid Major Blood shooting Destro. Her tank explodes with her in it. Hawk is shot in the back by Cobra Commander.
Lots going on there. And then we're going to bring it to issue 17, which is called Loose Ends. Here are the details. The script was Larry Hama, pencils Mike Vosberg, inks John D'Agostino, letters Joe Rosen, colors G. Russos, editor Denny O'Neil, and editor-in-chief Jim Shooter. The cover artists were Mike Vosberg and John D'Agostino. Synopsis goes a little something like this. Hawk and the Baroness are rushed to the hospital. Cobra Commander, Dr. Venom, and Destro are able to escape. Major Blood is captured by Stalker and Grand Slam. Scarface is also able to escape and heads to Coney Island. And finally, Snake Eyes and Quinn also escape from their jail cell in Miami and go to get revenge on Scarface and Dr. Venom.
Issue 18, Destro Returns. Script by Larry Hama, breakdowns Mike Vosberg, finishes John D'Agostino, letterers Edward Norton, colors George Russos, editor Dennis O'Neil, cover artist Denny O'Neil. The synopsis goes like this. The Joes, Destro and Snake Eyes, and Quinn all head for Coney Island looking for one thing, Scarface. The Joes think it may be a Cobra trap, but a letter from Snake Eyes reassures them that it's not. He'll meet them there. Snake Eyes and Quinn get there first. All Quinn wants is to know where Dr. Venom is. Scarface gives him the information, and then Quinn lets him go. Destro and the Joes fight it out, trying to get to Scarface, and Snake Eyes and Quinn vanish. A car chase ensues, with Scarface driving a pink Cadillac, Destro driving an ice cream truck, and the Joes in their APC. Destro captures Scarface, hijacks a plane, and takes off for Libya. The Joes soon follow in their cargo plane. In Libya, Destro brings Scarface to Dr. Venom, who injects him with his secret time bomb, Plague Toxin. The Cobra leaders secretly want the Joes to now capture Scarface and take him to their headquarters, where they hope the plague will kill off all of the Joes. In the desert, the Joes find a Cobra vehicle convoy and sneak into it on their Vamp through a giant cloud of dust. They find Scarface on a hiss tank and grab him. After a small skirmish, the Joes escape thinking that they have won. Now that they have Scarface, Cobra has no problems with it. Wow, there was a lot going on there too.
There was. That was a good issue. Issue 19, this is the ultimate conclusion to this little arc here, and it's called Joe Triumph. The scripter was Larry Hama, pencil breakdowns, Mike Vosberg, finishes John D'Agostino, letterer Rick Parker, colors George Russos, editor Linda Grant, editor-in-chief Jim Shooter, and the cover artist was Mike Vosberg. The synopsis goes a little something like this. Scarface warns the Joes of the plague toxin that he is infected with. Hawk believes him, but understands the Cobra plan is more than it seems. Their plan isn't just to wipe out the Joe team with the plague, but to see where in the country an emergency quarantine will take place. That would reveal to them the location of Joe headquarters. Hawk orders the construction of the Joe prefab fortress on the surface of the motor pool garage above the pit. The prisoners, Major Blood and the Baroness, are moved to the surface base. Fake security procedures and quarantine start. The chaplain's assistants are bussed off to California. Cobra sees these procedures happen and believe they have found Joe headquarters. As this happens, Snake Eyes and Quinn find Dr. Venom in the private lab. Before Quinn can kill him, Cobra arrives and tries to rescue him. Snake Eyes finds Snake body armor and sees it as the only way to stand up to a swarm of attacking Cobra troops. He puts the suit on, but doesn't realize that it has a mind control function built into it. Snake Eyes unwillingly knocks out Quinn, and the battle is over. The Cobra attack force flies towards Joe headquarters, fires missiles, and blows up the motor pool garage. As the smoke clears, the Joe prefab fortress is revealed, and the Cobras are thrilled at finding Joe headquarters. The Joes send out pack rats against his tanks. Dr. Venom sends in Snake Eyes and Quinn, both in snake armor, to wipe out the pack rats. Quinn is shot free of his armor and runs back to kill Dr. Venom. Major Blood breaks out of his cell, then kills General Flag, escapes with the Baroness, and leaves Scarface to die in the Joe base. Before Quinn can shove a grenade down Venom's throat, and that's not alliteration, he literally tries to shove a grenade down Venom's throat, he realizes he is doing an evil act of the Weasel and lets him go. Venom shoots Quinn in the back, and Quinn drops the grenade he was carrying, which blows up at Dr. Venom's feet. The Cobras destroy the Joe fortress, and they leave thinking they have won, although they had never found the actual pit.
Couple things before we move on to the next segment. Your name, Weasel Skull.
Yep.
If I remember correctly, doesn't that have something to do with Quinn?
It does. It does. One of the very first issues that we did, this was back when it was just Jared, Pat, and me doing Longbox Crusade, was issue 2, where we first meet Quinn. I thought he was a really cool character, and I went on and on about him. And I thought his Weasel Skull necklace was really cool. I made mention of that, and then from there on after, I was known as Weasel Skull. So there it is, the origin.
I thought it had something to do with that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And secondly, and we might talk about this a little bit later, as I was rereading these issues, I forgot how action-packed and how full these issues were, especially the last 2. Nowadays, if those last 2 issues were written today, that'd be like a 6-issue story arc, easily.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way they'd be able to get those into 2 issues.
They packed a lot in.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Anything before we move on to the next segment?
Man, I guess you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like I said at the beginning, this is really the peak reading G.I. Joe for me. These are some of the most memorable story arcs in my childhood. I really love these issues. That battle at the pit, the last issue in our series today, is one of my favorites. I love the pack rats. And I mean, it's just so much fun. There was so much action. There was intrigue, good storytelling. There's espionage. There was love triangles and double crosses. It had everything you wanted in a great military thriller. And I loved it.
I had to go back and collect all these. So as I was collecting them, I was getting little pieces of the story here and there because I wouldn't find them all in order, of course. And once I got them all together, I was able to read through the whole thing. It really came together well.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've read these sequentially, and and even today, I mean, I it's a page turner. It's really good stuff.
So with the synopsis out of the way, let's dig into some of the new characters that appeared in these 6 issues in our first segment, Supporting the Troops.
Cobra's gotten through our front lines. Destro's leading them. Is there no stopping that man?
These 6 issues introduced the remaining characters from the 1983 toy line that we didn't see in issues 8 through 13. And this sophomore class continues to be one of the strongest of the vintage line. Some great characters, many of which are still relevant today, and many fan favorites. Along with great toy designs, Larry wrote each of these with a unique personality, and each of them got a small spotlight. So let's pick a few of our favorite characters and how Larry used them in the storyline. To get this started, here are the characters that were introduced during these issues. After that, we will discuss something we have not had to this point, those that made the ultimate sacrifice. So for the Joes, the new characters were CoverGirl, Ace, and Tripwire. And for the Cobras, the new characters were Destro. We actually get to see his full body in issue 14, and Major Blood. So Jason, which one would you want to discuss first?
Oh, I'm going to have to go with Ace. Anybody that knows me and knows the tale of woe that is my Sky Striker tale knows that I got to go with Ace. There I was, 12 years old. All I wanted for Christmas was a Sky Striker. The coolest toy ever. Did I get a Sky Striker for Christmas? No. Did my brother? Yes. So yeah, Ace. Ace is my favorite. And I got him sitting over here to my right. I don't have all the G.I. Joe stuff I see in your background, but I do have a Sky Striker with Ace.
I don't remember if it was 83 or 84, but I did get the Sky Striker for Christmas one year. I don't have one today. I've got all the pieces and parts. I would probably be able to complete one.
Oh yeah.
I just haven't found the shell for the right price yet.
You got an aircraft carrier right behind you. You got the flag.
Yeah.
I can see it.
And I got a Conquest. I actually got 2 Conquests on there.
Oh, those are cool too.
And some other helicopters and stuff. I'm waiting for the right Sky Striker to come along.
Yeah, the Sky Striker was like my favorite G.I. Joe toy, and Ace was so cool. I have to go with Ace. I got to lead off with Ace, although I like CoverGirl and the Wolverine too.
I'm going to go with Destro. We discussed it a little bit. Issue 11 was his first cameo. He was in the story with Pipeline Ploy. They never showed his full face. But can you imagine, and maybe you lived this because you were collecting at this time, but as a kid, when reading the comic, not being able to see his nice shiny head and all this stuff, who is this guy? Who is this guy? The build-up for 4 issues. I don't know if the toys came out before the comics or which it was, but and then all of a sudden there he is in all his glory in issue 14. Every iteration of G.I. Joe has Destro. You can't have G.I. Joe or Cobra without Destro. Your
story's only as good as your villains, and what a great villain he was. Well, okay, I kind of led to it. I'm going to go with CoverGirl. CoverGirl and the Wolverine were another play set that I honestly don't remember if Jared got it or I got it. Probably Jared, but we used to play with that one a lot. That play set was a lot of fun with CoverGirl, and she's an interesting character, and how she's introduced in the comic here. Like, it's like, ooh, kitten's got claws. I think Scarlett was liking being the only woman on the Joe team, and it's like, oh, now we got a little competition. They kind of got their fur up a little bit in their first encounter. And it was really cool in this comic, too, how they introduced her into her first battle. And she's a little shaky at first, but she's squared away and does her job. And she looks cool, too, with that leather jacket and everything. She's just, visually, she's cool. She's got a cool play set. And they introduced her well in this comic, in my opinion.
That's one thing when I was rereading this, I forgot, as you mentioned, she was confident in practice or drills. And then she got out in the battle. She's like, this is totally different. I'm not sure I can do this. And then she was pulled through. And it really shows that Larry building that character, that humanity into his characters.
It's only he could do. I've said it once. I said it a million times. If not for Larry Hama, I don't think anybody else. I mean, there are a lot of great writers out there. No disrespect to anybody else, but Larry knew what he wanted to do with these characters, and it shows in this book.
Yep. I'm going to take Tripwire. The original Tripwire figure, it was interesting because you had Breaker in the first wave, where he was a support guy. Tripwire, I guess you could say, was, he's not on the front lines. He's a support guy. He's out there. I guess you could say he's front line. He's going in there before anybody else, but he didn't come with a gun. He was kind of just like a secondary character. So I found that interesting that from the beginning of the line, they were using these people, these support characters, like Toll Booth later on with the bridge layer, who drove the space shuttle crawler, Hardtop.
Turtle.
Yeah, Turtle. That's who it was. But I liked how they use these characters, these support characters. And I would consider Tripwire a support character. They definitely use the name Trip quite often in the comic book as well for him.
Yeah, I guess we got one left. Major Blood. Last but definitely not least, I mean, he's still really cool. Visually, I thought he was a cool character when he came out. It was kind of a must-have. I thought his rocket-firing gun was pretty unique. The eye patch, of course, anybody with an eye patch, come on, that sells it. So visually, it looked really good. I liked revisiting these stories here, seeing, basically he's hired to assassinate Destro, and there's a part in the comic where you've got all of them sitting around the table and they're saying one thing and it shows what they're thinking. It's just really, really good writing and a really good kind of introduction of the character and throw into the world of G.I. Joe. He's slimy. He's good at his job. Poet at heart, I guess. I mean, a questionable skill, He claims
Very
to be a poet laureate, but I don't know.
I asked Jared this when we were talking about the Major Blood action figure. He's got that one stiff arm that won't move on the action figure because he had the patch too, like you mentioned.
Uh-huh.
I always imagine it as he got his arm was damaged, his eye was damaged in a battle or something. Did you ever consider or think why his arm was like just one arm stiff?
Interesting that you should ask that. I don't really remember the action figure, that component of it. I read these in the G.I. Joe Complete Collection, Volume 2. And in it, Larry Hama he's written some comments from his memories on the book. And he mentions in one of these that the reason he had that kind of boxy thing on his arm was because the gun was supposed to fire missiles. Like it fired missiles, so there would be this fire backlash. So it's there to protect his arm as he fires the missile gun.
That makes sense.
That's from the man. So.
That you can't argue with that.
Nope. So let it be written, so let it be done.
Exactly. Those books have notes and stuff in it, not just a reprint.
Yeah, they do. They have some in Larry's, he goes back and I forget the actual name of Grand Slam, but he mentions in there like, oh, this was my best friend's brother growing up. So I took that name, and he said he did that a lot.
Yeah, I knew that a lot of the characters, when he wrote them with people he knew from Vietnam or, growing up or whatever. So, okay. Now we're going to move on to something that we haven't had to discuss yet. And those that made the ultimate sacrifice. In one issue, there were 4 people that were killed. Quinn, Dr. Venom, Scarface, and General Flag. Like I said before, I had to go back and read all these. So every time one of those characters was brought up, there was a little note down at the bottom of the page, see issue 19. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to go find that issue. Finally found it. I'm like, I read it. I could not believe just the story of them all passing away. And the way they all died, too, was fitting. Yeah. I don't want to say fitting. You don't want to see anybody die, but Quinn, shot in the back by Dr. Venom, who...
Well, let's be honest. The Dr. Venom, nobody shed a tear when he bit the dust.
I was rereading it today, and Quinn said that, I will not kill you. I'm alive.
Yeah.
And Dr. Quinn shot him in the back, and as he was dying, the grenade rolled out, and that's what killed Dr. Venom.
Yeah, that's poetic right there. Dr. Venom, and that's what I really appreciated in preparation for this show. I kind of jump aboard with Dr. Venom. I'd forgotten about him. I'd forgotten about him as a character, but what an interesting villain this guy was, right? What an arc that we read in these last 5 issues, coming in when basically Quinn and Snake Eyes and Dr. Venom, they need to buddy up to escape the bunker and escape Sierra Gordo. And along the way, he double crosses them like, 3 times, tries to dump Snake Eyes through the Bombay doors. But he's competent. He like knows what he's doing. And he's just a really good villain. They need him. I mean, he's the only one who can fly the plane, to get out of there. It's a great, great villain. And in the end, it's like a hoisted by your own petard, which makes the death of Quinn even that more poignant, right? That more memorable. So, yeah, hats off to Dr. Venom, man. A villain I'd forgotten about. And how cool was he?
Quinn, Dr. Venom, and Scarface were all connected. Starting in Sierra Gordo, all the way up through. And for Scarface, he probably had the worst luck of anybody in this.
I felt bad. I kind of felt bad for Scarface, man. I really did.
He couldn't catch a break for nothing, trying to get. And then he finally, he got shot, didn't he?
He got blown up because
That's right. He got blown up on the. That's right.
Doc was like, "I'm sorry, man. He took the keys."
Yeah. Doc's like, I can't do anything. Your buddy.
Feel for you, but I can't reach you, brother. Bye.
Yeah. I gotta save General Flag, which in the end he did.
He tried.
Yeah.
Lifeline's like, I probably could save you. I'm coming later.
Yeah.
Now, Scarface was interesting. I mean, he was a survivor. Let's put it that way. Like he got himself out of a lot of scrapes, and then I guess Cobra Commander didn't realize his voice echoed in that mask or something. Scarface heard him like, "Hey, if just so you know, if we can't plant him within the G.I. Joe headquarters within 2 weeks, we're going to have to pop, get rid of him because it'll be contagious." And then, so Scarface, he's singing like a canary once the Joes catch him. I'm poisoned and they're trying to catch you. He's an interesting character. Yeah, antidotes in my boot. I stole that like 15 issues ago, man.
Way down to Sierra Gordo.
So he was no dummy, man. He was a survivor, and he kind of causes, and I'm kind of getting ahead, the death of General Flag when he kicks Flag's gun out of his hand so that Blood can shoot him. Thinking that, like, okay, now I've ingratiated myself to Major Blood and he'll save me. And Blood's like, no, sorry. I'll feel bad about it, but I'm not going to save you. So he could have made it if he hadn't have done that.
Room for barely two on the Fang, and I'm out of here with Baroness.
The Fang's occupado.
Yep. General Flag, he was shot by Major Blood, and that goes on for a long time, even into the Devil's Due era. One of the issues where Duke is going after Major Blood, it gets you 5. They bring that up. He's wanted for the death of General Flag. General Flag wasn't in the comic book very long, but had a big impact on the whole storyline.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, from my perspective, General Flag died and he got an aircraft carrier named after him, and that aircraft carrier probably served the Joes better than he did from those 5 issues that I read. I mean, basically, sorry, Hawk, I got a meeting with the Joint Chiefs, and they're not going to like what we have to tell them. So let's keep that on the down low. And that one where he has like every troop in a 50-mile square radius at the Capitol when the real target's at the Treasury, and Hawk's telling him, man, I think there's real targets at the Treasury. Can I have like 6 guys? Can I get some help? He's like, no, man, you're on your own. Yeah, I didn't really see a whole lot of help that General Hawk gave the Joe team in there. I mean, he didn't deserve to be killed, shot in the back by Major Blood. But to me, like, his character arc was the least interesting of the 4 that we've discussed.
Yeah, I agree with that. A good leader will listen to his people he's put in charge below him, and he didn't listen to Hawk very often.
Not at least in these 5 issues that we read.
No. All right. Anything else before we move on?
No, man. We had a lot making Ultimate Sacrifice in 19, didn't we?
Oh, yeah. Really, up until this point, there weren't any. And that rolls right into what I want to talk about next. Larry Hama created some non-toy characters so that he could tell more in-depth stories. Some of these characters would be part of the comics, toys, and cartoons for several years to come, and others would be in the comic for a short time, but would have a profound effect on the Joes, as well as being fan favorites to this day. So let's discuss some of these supporting characters we found in these issues. I say all that to say these 6 issues, there were no new non-toy supporting characters that weren't already introduced previously.
I know they're not. Maybe it doesn't quite fit the mold, but I got to use this as an entry point for these 2 characters that I came to really admire and respect. And it's that old couple on the beach. I'm trying to remember. It's Estelle, and I can't remember Sheldon. Sheldon and Estelle. When the Lancaster crashes onto the beach, Dr. Venom's flying, and it turns out Sheldon was he's kind of like a grizzled World War II vet, and he's reminiscent. And it's a poignant story that he's telling. And Estelle, who's apparently, obviously been his wife through this whole thing, like, I've never heard you tell that story. And she's so fascinated in the story, and he's telling a poignant tale about what it's like to be afraid going into combat. In the meantime, this Lancaster bomber's like coming straight at him, and they don't move. They don't even flinch. They just stay there. They're nose to nose with this thing at the end of it. Cops all surrounded them, unflappable. Sheldon and Estelle, I think, were my 2 non-action figure. I don't know if they count as supporting characters, but I guess, not non-core story characters that appeared in this comic. But I had to give a shout out to Stella Sheldon.
I was trying to figure out how I could get them into the discussion because, like you said, the story was good. I'm looking at the page right now, and that plane is, 4 foot from them on the beach? What was his last line? There's sand in my drink now.
Like, you got sand in my drink. Go take care of this. And he says, what do you want me to do? Call a cop as they're surrounded by like 100 police officers?
And that's Larry just putting that humanity in there. And over the years reading the G.I. Joe comic, I learned a lot of history from these comics. Larry would put something in there. I'm go, well, what's he talking about? And I'd go and look it up. Not Google, but encyclopedia or microfiche. And that's what he did there. He's putting that in there to pique your interest, to go study some more and get interested in something.
Yeah, he was really good at that. He was really good at tying in history, especially military history, and just making you go and be curious and find out more.
All right, let's roll on to the next one. With all the issue details and character discussion out of the way, we're going to move on to our next segment called General Issues.
We need a new plan, Destro. On Night Attack. Night Attack and Major Blood will lead.
These 6 issues had so much going on, we picked up where we left off with Snake Eyes, Quinn, and Dr. Venom caught in the bunker. The mystery Cobra operative is finally revealed to be Destro. Major Blood, a new Cobra mercenary, shows up. Cobra attacks the U.S. Treasury, where Hawk and the Baroness are injured. Dr. Venom, Quinn, Scarface, and General Flag are killed. With so much to talk about, let's get right into breaking down some of these issues, which we've just kind of skirted on a little bit already. Jason, I'm going to let you pick which of these you want first, and if there's anything else you want to bring up, now's the time to do it.
Oh, man. Well, this is an embarrassment of riches. We've got a lot of stuff going on. Let's talk about the attack defense of the U.S. Treasury on this one. Fun story. We talked about it. This is kind of where CoverGirl cuts her teeth, gets her first taste of combat, and Torpedo's there. And I thought, this is an odd place for you to be wearing your wetsuit, Torpedo. I've worn, swim fins, and not my first choice of what I would be wearing. And he's got his mask on and everything. Everybody's got machine guns, and he's shooting people with a air gun. And I just thought, poor Larry. Poor Larry. I mean, I know he's told, like, oh, you've got to sell the toy, so the toy's got to look like the merch. But I noticed, like, later on when the team's assembling to go on the plane, they make a point. What happened to Torpedo? He had to stay behind, and it was his turn to clean the microwave or something. There was something going on, but Larry really wanted to make sure he didn't have to draw a ridiculous wetsuit in the middle of the desert, I think.
I can't imagine him flopping around in the Treasury. There's no way he'd be quiet, first of all, and he'd be tripping over everything.
Man, it's hard to walk in those things, man.
It is.
That was goofy.
That storyline, I remember, it was one of the typical Larry Hama, what's the word I'm looking for? Double back or double takes, where he would be saying, Cobra's doing this over here, but then they're actually doing it over here. Issue 49 and 50, when Cobra's escaping Springfield. Really got to read it a couple times to understand fully why it works.
Overall, it was a good, entertaining battle, though, and it's another point where they almost get Scarface and he gets away. It was a good, action-packed issue. And
a couple things happen in this issue. That first, Hawk gets shot by Co-Commander, but he recovers. And then the Baroness got caught in the explosion. At the end of this issue, you don't know if she survived or not. And Destro's distraught. I mean, he's actually at the point where Cobra Commander and Dr. Venom are talking about, is he going to make it? Is he going to be any use to us? Let's talk about, and it was hinted on earlier in the issues from last comic book episode, but it carries on through here with Destro and Baroness's past and why he was so concerned about her when she was blown up. Well, Destro definitely gave Cobra an added dimension, right? Because he's not really Cobra. I mean, he's kind of his own thing. He's working with Cobra, kind of, sort of. I mean, we see a lot more of his capabilities in these issues. I think we'll talk a little bit more about those later on. It's like what you talked about before. So many times you build up a character and then that character kind of disappoints. Or maybe he's a flash in the pan. He's really cool for a little while and then think like Bane and Batman or something
something along those lines. But Destro, I mean, Destro was revealed, he stuck and he held and he holds today. I mean, he's still, the character design looks good. Like we talked about the love triangle with Baroness, the mystery, like what is their history? What's his angle with Cobra Commander? Cobra Commander just wants him gone out of the picture. And so it gives this dynamic. It's just this tension that's always there whenever Cobra's on the page. And so instead of being kind of like this two-dimensional Cobra, just, this terrorist organization intent on ruling the world, there's a lot more meat on that bone now, thanks to the introduction of Destro. So major character and one that's got legacy.
He brought, I don't know if honor's a good word for it, but he had honor and respect for the Joes as well. He still was their enemy, but there were many times he said, you know what? We're just going to call it a truce and we're going to move on because I respect you and honor you and we don't need to continue fighting.
Practical on the side to him. He did.
He did. And he was in it for the money. He was a weapons supplier originally. If it didn't make sense, a lot of times he didn't do it.
He and Major Blood should have bonded more now that I think about it.
What else you want to talk about?
Oh, man. Let's talk about, we'll do the Joe chase down Cobra Commander and Destro, and then also the chase down Major Blood while on the bus. That's the one that I really liked, with Stalker and Grand Slam chasing him on the bus and the Ram. That was super cool. Grand Slam's kind of one of those characters that I forget about, quite frankly, when I'm thinking about the Joe lineup. Even though he was wave one, I mean, he came with the Howl, I believe, the heavy attack laser. And so it's kind of like, okay, well, you stand behind here with your big gun. But boy, he was a man of action in this one. He die-hearted through that bus window and he laid into Major Blood. He was throwing hands. And that, I was like, okay, hats off, Grand Slam.
Yeah, he wasn't used often, but he was used very well in this issue, like you said. What did you think about, before the chase, Gung Ho getting out and tearing that door off of that guy's car and beating the car in?
That was a Shelby GT Cobra, man. That car is six figures at least. And that guy said the wrong thing to the wrong man at the wrong time. And quite honestly, he's lucky that car door didn't go upside his head.
Yeah.
They were pissed, man. They were pissed.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, their leader had been shot in the back. And they're trying to do a medevac with him. And this guy's honking his horn. I guess just lucky Roadblock wasn't around. They were just taking that car apart.
I remember a couple times later on, Roadblock did some similar stuff. There was one issue in the 70s where they're down in one of the countries in South America, and some guy was going to light an American flag on fire.
I remember that, yeah.
You remember that? And Roadblock, you could hear the Ma Deuce get racked in, or you saw the sound effect, and all of a sudden the guy turns around and there's Roadblock standing there. Don't do it. Don't do it. Yeah.
He said something to the effect of, if I remember right, he says, I respect your constitutional right to express yourself. And then once you're done, I'll express my constitutional right.
Yep.
And I was like, uh-oh.
The chases that we're talking about included your boy Ace there. He was having air support for the Cobra Commander and Destro chase. The bus chase with Grand Slam and Stalker. Previously, I got to say, I was not a fan of Vosberg's art. But
yeah, serviceable is what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. But the way he does action in these issues, you can almost feel that action coming through. So you can see that in the bus chase. You can see that in some other things. I have to admit, there's some of these that Vosberg did a very good job on.
I agree. I think his art's serviceable. Where he excels is really that storytelling piece of it. Like you can kind of view it in your mind as if it was a movie, the chase between the bus and the Ram, and you can envision the stuntman having to climb from the Ram onto the bus, scale that bus. And then there was a moment where they had the low bridge, so he has to drop down. It's almost like storyboard for a movie, which makes it really compelling to read. The other piece, too, is there are a lot of big battle action moments in here, particularly when we get to the Battle of the Pit. And he does a really good job of taking a sweeping scale epic feel. You really get the sense of dozens of his tanks and hundreds of soldiers charging this pit and them fighting them off. And his ability to put that all in those limited panels is pretty impressive.
So the next one I want to talk about, and this one's going to cover, I think, quite a bit. Dr. Venom's and Cobra's plague toxin scheme. So they were testing on a volunteer in issue 14. And then they had the attempt to contaminate the ink at the U.S. Treasury, and then the inoculation of Scarface, because that was all the same plague, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
In some form or another?
Yes. And I think, again, this is what made Dr. Venom such an interesting character, that he kind of knew that once Cobra had this plague, they didn't need him anymore. So he gave him the half-cooked plague without the catalyst. Right? And didn't tell him. And then, of course, he was double-crossed. And then Cobra finds out, no, I did the double-crossing first with volunteer number 14. They inject him and he just dies. And they're like, what? And Venom's like, oh, you need this. Right? So all of a sudden, I'm useful to you again. So that was very interesting. And then the idea to contaminate the ink at the U.S. Treasury, that was pretty cool. That got foiled. Big battle at the Treasury that we talked about. But then inoculating Scarface. Poor Scarface, man. I feel bad for him. I just feel bad for him. But even Scarface was like, no, you I double-crossed you because I kept the antidote and put it in my boot. I haven't taken the shoe off for 17 days.
And he knew from the beginning, way back at Sierra Gordo, he knew that, I'm going to get screwed. I better do something. Those 3 different times, like you said, Dr. Venom using those 3 different schemes to further what Cobra wanted. And then, as we see in issue 19, that didn't do him any good anyway.
Yep.
So, yeah, there was a lot of story in just in that whole plague thing.
Double crosses, triple crosses, double crosses. There was a lot of intrigue.
And kind of with that, talking about issue 14, the Cobra headquarters. Originally, Cobra Commander Destro and Baroness are all at Cobra headquarters, and they have to go to Springfield. As I was reading that, maybe I realized it before, but it dawned on me that that's 2 different places. I always thought that Springfield was Cobra headquarters, the only Cobra headquarters at the time. So there's another one somewhere else that they had to travel from Cobra headquarters to Springfield.
Maybe it's like their field headquarters,
Maybe.
Springfield's like their home base.
There you go.
They obviously they have some set up in Libya. They've got little cells all over the place, I think. Let's talk about the battle at the pit, man. I just got to get this out. I was trying to save it kind of for last, but man,
just get right into it.
Let's get into it, man. What a fight. That was crazy. Was this the first time we saw the prefab Joe construction?
Yes.
That's one I never had the money to buy, man. I kind of wish I did. That was cool.
And this is also the only time we see the pack rats and the snake armor, I believe, also, isn't it? We see the prefab base in issue, what's the one where they make Cobra Commander build it? 24?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
that's the one where Storm Shadow rescues Cobra Commander. Yeah, that's right.
But I don't know if we see the snake armor or the pack rats. We'll see that going forward. But
I can't remember seeing them again. They were cool toys too. I like those.
I cut you off a little bit on the battle. What were your thoughts on the battle?
Oh man, we kind of open it up with the big reveal of the prefab fort. And the prefab fort, the fake fort, the faux fort, I guess we can call it. Man, it was dealing damage. It was shooting down Cobra helicopters. They did some dirty tricks with some claymore mines hidden under ambulances and taking out Cobra troops. So Joe was fighting a little dirty in there, and I was loving it. Pack rats were really cool, taking out his tanks. And then, when they had him on the ropes, Hawk was like, go, go, go. And then all those, you got the Vamp rolling out there. You got the Ram rolling out there, just running and gunning. It was a lot of fun. And then, of course, this is the one where we get, it's the reason why we have a part of this show as a tribute to our departed. So many folks die in that battle. is definitely, as I read through this collection and, going back to my childhood, this issue I remember. This one I read many, many times, and it's great.
Some of these scenes, like you said, you see the scene with the Ram, the APC, the Mobat, the Wolverine, Vamp. What blows me away is they had the prefab came up out of the motor pool, and all you see is ground. You don't see any other buildings, and they're on a military, chaplain's assistant base. Where's all the rest of the buildings at? Were they just gone? It was a battle that intense that it was gone.
Picked them up and moved them, I guess. I don't know.
Maybe, but when they were building the base, you could see the shape of what would be the toy with that front that jutted out.
Yep, with the big gun mounted on it.
Yep. I'm sure it's like anywhere else, working. It's probably the same in the military. The guys are asking, why are we doing this? This doesn't make sense.
Yep. Ours not the reason why. Ours is just to do and follow the SOP. Yep. That's true. The real life story, when I was deployed, we were about to go over the berm from Kuwait into Iraq. We didn't have up armored Humvees at the time, so we filled a lot of sandbags with sand and lined like the floorboards of our vehicles with sandbags. And so we spent, a day out there just filling sandbags and armoring up the vehicles. And then we were told that we had to empty all the sandbags and use special sand that was contracted by KBR and refill all the sandbags. We're in the desert, man. Sand is plentiful. We got it. We don't have much of anything, but we got sand. So that moment in the comic reminded me of that. Just like, all right, here we go again.
This was one of the first of many all hands on deck battles.
Like issue 1 was kind of an all hands deck battle. And then this one, and then I think of like the Battle at Cobra Island, another one that jumps into mind. But those are definitely, Battle of Springfield. Yeah.
Reading this and knowing what's coming after this, next issue is 20, which is a single story that I'm guessing is a what do they call those? The just
filler issue
stories, filler issue. Yeah, they're like, hey, we're not going to make our deadline, so put this one out. Story.
That's what Pat always says. Sometimes you got to eat the filler.
Issue 21, which it doesn't have any dialogue because it was behind.
And the silent interlude, yes.
And then after that, you get a whole new round of characters. You're not going to see Zap very often. You're not going to see some of the original 13 very often. So this is their last hurrah, battle. Very good issue, very good battle.
Yeah, it was just great.
We've discussed it a little bit. Snake Eyes and Quinn going rogue. They escaped with Dr. Venom from the bunker, flew over to Miami on the big plane. But when they got out of jail, what's the first thing they did? They gambled to get a pink Cadillac and Snake Eyes in a cowboy hat. What did Quinn say? You couldn't even let him keep his hat?
I'm glad you got us the car, Snake Eyes, but couldn't you let him keep that?
If you think about it, I'm trying to remember when they went down to Sierra Gordo. 12 or 13? It was 12, I think.
Issue 12? Yeah, 11 or 12 they referenced. 11
was a pipeline ploy. Issue 12 was the next one. So for 7 issues, Snake Eyes, they have not seen Snake Eyes. And at one point, I thought he was dead.
Yeah.
And when Hawk showed Scarlet that letter, she had a little tear in her eye again, just like when she thought he was dead. Again, hinting at that relationship we don't know the extent of until sometime down the road. Quinn and Snake Eyes together was like the Odd Couple.
Yeah, it's a good buddy cop movie, isn't it?
Yes. Or Bad Boys.
A little Lethal Weapon here or something.
Yeah.
Quinn's like, I'm too old for this mess.
They worked well together. They understood each other, and they were a good combination.
Yeah, I think from the get-go, way back in issue 2, there was mutual respect between Quinn and Snake Eyes. Definitely frenemies. They weren't always on the same side. We did see them go through a lot together in this issue. And I think that's what made part of Quinn's death in 19 so poignant is Snake Eyes' reaction, which is really a tribute to the artist because, Snake Eyes is masked, of course, so you can't see his face, but you can tell by the way he's clenching his fists, like, this will not stand. So that was really powerful moment. The other thing I think about is when Quinn and Snake Eyes gets dropped out of the Bombay door by Dr. Venom, and then Quinn is also tossed out, and Quinn's holding on, and Snake Eyes is holding on to his leg at one point, and Dr. Venom is doing everything he can. He's beating Quinn to death with a wrench, and Quinn won't stop. Quinn won't let Snake Eyes drop, and just pulls them both back into the plane. Man, that is a feat of strength.
Yeah.
What mad respect and willpower.
He was a big man
with a big heart.
See anything else we need to discuss, or anything that you can think of as we've talked about it?
Well, one last thing that popped into my mind is the battle at Coney Island. I think we'd be remiss not to talk about the Manta a little bit, because the Manta was like one of the first mail away things I ever got. You know, these G.I. Joe toys. I was thinking about that as I was preparing for this show, and just those toys were something special. Like, everything was cool about them. The box art was cool. The toy was cool. The figures were cool. It came with cool blueprints, cool file cards that you could cut away, and flag points. And you're like, cutting away flag points? Like, I don't know why I'm cutting away these flag points, but they're going to be useful one day. And then you get this offer for the Manta. You send in the flag points, and they give you a cool little toy, a little windsurfing thing with the machine gun, and it all breaks down into a backpack that you can put on the back of one of your Joes. It was awesome. And I love seeing it at the Battle of Coney Island.
Yeah, the battle itself, seeing Destro fighting on a roller coaster, and then, like you said, the Manta coming in, that was the excuse that they used for Torpedo. They said that he had to go
That's
back.
Right. That's right.
And he was, what Rock and Roll say? He was...
he wouldn't be good in the desert. He's like, I don't know. I think he's getting some action in the sand right now.
Yep.
Good for you, Torpedo.
That's continuing with the rough ride that Scarface had. He was just trying to go back and hide for a little bit, and he couldn't be left alone.
I mean, his hideout wasn't even that baller, man. It was basically, It was like my college dorm. Just a bed, got some shelves on cinder blocks, that type of thing. And then Destro going to come flying in on his VTOL jet and ruin his day. But it was kind of cool to see Destro go toe-to-toe with the Joes. Again, we're seeing a lot of facets of Destro in this story arc, and we get to see he can hold his own in a firefight. He's got courage, he's got skill, and he's not one that's going to go down easy.
No, he's not. And he definitely has some battlefield prowess that you can tell he's seen some stuff.
Oh yeah.
All right. Anything else?
Man, there's so much fun stuff. We could talk about this for 3 shows.
Initially, we were going to do like 12 issues, and it happened that 1982 just had 6 issues in it, so it worked out good. But then we were texting back and forth, and I'm like, there's no way we could do 12 issues. It'd be a 3-hour show. We couldn't do it. So we broke it up into 2 shows covering 1 year. Yeah, we could definitely keep on going. I'm sure, listeners, if you have anything else that we missed, comment on YouTube or Twitter, X, or Facebook, anything that you think of that we didn't cover, and let's discuss it. There's going to be stuff that you guys pick out that Jason and I didn't. Let's start that discussion. Next segment is Taking Cover.
That captain officer is going to lead us right to G.I. Joe headquarters. You're a genius, Destro.
In this segment, we will be discussing the covers of the comics, these bright and action-packed images that caught our attention and made us want to pick up the issues and see what happens in the story. The cover should represent what happens in the comic book. Overall, the Marvel run of G.I. Joe comics did a decent job of this. And a majority of these covers, they represent the action and story that was in the issue. Jason, since this is your first time, I've got 2 questions for you. When you look at a comic, you see the cover. Do you prefer that the cover represents what's going on in the story, or do you want more of a kind of a portrait, more of the 90s type feel? What's your preference?
I guess I'm a little bit nuanced on that. I mean, I want the cover to grab me, to really speak to me. Like G.I. Joe issue 1 grabs you. You got a tank coming right at you and a whole team of folks just spraying brass jumping off the tank. That sings, right? And that kind of is what happens in the book. It's blown up. It's a little bigger, but we're going to see the tank. We're going to see all those characters in action. To me, that's hitting the nail on the head, right? I think the ones that I don't like are the ones that suggest something's going to happen that's really cool and then doesn't really. And I don't think we have any of those here in this run. I think these covers all really strike a good balance, right? They look cool. They make you want to grab it and pick it up and see what happens. And what happens on the cover largely reflects the action that goes on in the book.
I agree. These 6 issues, they represent what's going on. There was one of them that I thought, not so much, and it might have been issue 19, but no, issue 18, I believe, is the one. The one that Cobra Commander is staring at the monitor.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Really, it's still a good cover. Like you said, grabs your attention. That's the only one that I could think of that would be but it's still a great cover.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that one doesn't really tell you what's going on in the story.
Yeah.
But it does look cool.
It does. So my next question, it's a twofold answer. Which of these issues we've discussed did the best job of representing the storyline and what happened in the comic? And which cover was your favorite? They don't have to be the same. They can be different.
Well, I think they were all pretty close. And I'm cheating a little bit and walking back through. I think the one that I want to say right off the bat is the Red Eye to Miami cover. That's the one that has Snake Eyes being dropped out and Dr. Venom with a wrench threatening him. Not exactly what happens because Quinn's flying the plane, so it makes you wonder, like, is Quinn part of this scheme or not? But I think that one is pretty accurate. And I think my favorite is still 19, mostly for nostalgia reasons, but it just it's a good battle that's summed up on that cover.
My favorite cover is going to be issue 14, the one where Destro's in the foreground.
Oh, yeah.
And they are, got the APC and all that. Now, I have to admit, I'm reading from the 25th anniversary comic book pack.
Oh, nice.
So the colors really pop a little. It's more painted.
Oh, it does look good. Oh, it's different. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I still like the original. That's one of my favorites, but this one really pops with the way it's painted. Now, the one that I think tells the story the most or the best is a tie between 19 and 17. And 17 is the one with Major Blood on the bus being chased down on the ram.
Yeah, I was looking at that one too. Yeah.
Yeah. Those two are a tie to me. Now, there was something I wanted to bring up on number 19. Issue 19 was assistant editor month. Linda Grant was the assistant editor here. And she has a note down in the bottom that she snuck in a Snake Eyes pinup after the letters page. If you guys don't have the floppy issue, this art is something that I don't see anywhere else other than right here.
Yeah,
I guess I never really looked. Did they include that one? Okay.
Mm-hmm, they did.
I don't know who the artist is. This is one that I would make a poster of. But I just thought that was a really unique addition because I know the issue 1, they do some pinups. But I don't know if they've done any pinups since then. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that Snake Eyes pinup's pretty awesome.
All right. Anything before we move on? Anything about the covers, the comics, the storylines, anything before we move on to our final segment?
No, it was fun.
Listeners, why don't you give us your opinion and your thoughts on your favorite cover and the cover you felt represented the action the most? Again, Facebook, X, YouTube, make a comment, have a discussion. And we're going to move on to our final segment called Military Surplus.
Now I know.
And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe!
Here at the Outpost, on each episode, besides discussing the toys, comics, and cartoons of the highlighted year, we discuss a peripheral item related to G.I. Joe. This episode, we are going to discuss some items that I didn't know existed or forgot they existed until I started looking for what we were going to cover for this segment. But these items amazed me when I saw them. We are going to be discussing the official G.I. Joe accessories from 1982. And these are what looks like a pewter type of metal accessory, pins, dog tags, bracelets. Items like these show how much Hasbro was going all in with advertising and marketing of this relaunch. We discussed the first of these items on episode 5, and as a recap, they were the Commando pin set, the dog tag set, ID bracelet, keyring, dog tag, bullet set. Between Pat, Jared, and myself, we all agreed the Commando pin set was the best of those 4. And I have a feeling one of these, I think there's going to be an obvious one. These can be found at yojo.com in the archive section. Scroll through there and you'll find it. There's a lot of good stuff in there. Some really cool stuff. So the first one we're going to talk about is the machine gunner pin. So this set, I'm surprised they don't have rock and roll on there, but I think they just used the basic art for all of them.
Yeah, it looks like they went with a straight grunt model for all these.
And it looks like it's straight off his figure card, too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So this has a machine gun with the G.I. Joe logo, and I can't make out what that lower bar is. Is that a rank insignia?
Yeah, those are Master Sergeant stripes.
Okay.
Yeah. I never made it to Master Sergeant, but I still got some real Sergeant stripes around here somewhere.
What do you think of that, Jason?
I mean, I think it's pretty cool. It's very much like the actual military. The sergeant stripes are pretty accurate. On your Class A uniform, which is kind of like your suit, your business suit uniform, that's where you wear your medals. I had like a marksmanship medal, what you qualify in, like rifle, machine gun. So that might say machine gun on it, is what I'm guessing. So it'll say like machine gun, grenade. So whatever you qualified, if you qualify like expert or sharpshooter, what level of qualification you made. So yeah, pretty cool. I'd want to wear that proudly as a kid.
Not identical to the military, but very close. Is what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, it's not completely accurate. It's G.I. Joe-ified. You can tell it's based off the concept. I know where I would put it on my uniform if I had it.
All right. The next one is a ring and bar pin. So it looks like it's basically that's what it is. It looks like a G.I. Joe logo colored with the red, white, and blue.
Yeah,
and the ring cool. Is just silver. All these are pretty cool. And I would, if I found these, I would have a hard time.
I might drop some bucks for them. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I think the pewter rings, I get an officer vibe with that. Those ring knockers is what we used to call them, the ones that go to the academy and everything. Nah, I'm much more for the stripes. That's my forte.
You are not the officer type, huh?
No, I am not the officer type.
Okay. There's not a whole lot more we can say about that. It's pretty cool, though. The next one is the Ranger metal and pin set. Very similar to the machine gun one, it's like, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking probably the machine gun one probably just says machine gun or machine gun underneath of it. But yeah, this is pretty cool. It's in the style, like I was telling you, of your weapon classification.
Okay.
Like this would be worn on the left side of your chest and hang down. Now, the Ranger tab is interesting because the Ranger is an actual patch that you wear. You wouldn't wear that with your weapons qualification badge. Ranger is a special infantry school for elite infantry soldiers. Stalker is a Ranger in the G.I. Joe team. So this isn't exactly accurate, but I get what they're going for. I mean, actually, visually, this one's pretty cool. This one might be the coolest one so far.
That's why I said there's going to be one that I think we're both going to be gravitating towards.
Yeah.
And the last one is a simple G.I. Joe whistle.
Yeah, it's a whistle, but it says G.I. Joe on it.
That's about all you can say.
That's right.
That's all it is. It's a silver whistle. It's still pretty cool. If this is the least of these 8 that 4 today and then previous 4, that's still pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. I mean, I wouldn't turn it down.
Nope, not at all.
It's practical, too, if I'm getting mugged for help with my G.I. Joe whistle.
There you go. I wonder if you whistle, does somebody come and immediately out of the shadows and rescue you? That'd be pretty cool,
Oh, man, I'd be down with that. Yeah. Snake Eyes come to my rescue. Now what? You want my wallet? Come get my wallet.
All right. So, thoughts on these 4 items that we looked at, Jason?
Man, I think you hit the nail on the head. Number one, I'd never seen this before in my life. The closest thing that I think I've seen to this is, once again, with the flag points, I joined the G.I. Joe fan club at one point in time. Or more accurately, my brother and I both did. We kind of divvied up the stuff because it came with like a headband, red, white, and blue headband with G.I. Joe on it, little wristbands, and there were dog tags that came with it as well. But I have never seen these specific items before in my life, and they're all pretty cool.
I stumbled on these, a couple episodes ago, the last comic book episode, and I'm like, I got to share these because they're pretty cool.
They are.
So, which one's your favorite?
As much as I knocked it, I like the ring and the G.I. Joe pin. If nothing else for that pin is really cool.
I was not expecting that. I would have thought you'd be leaning towards the Ranger one like I am.
I like the Ranger one. I really do. That would be number 2. It's just, I think for a practical standpoint, that pin would go just really well on just about anything. You would like wear it as a tie pin or something, It just looks really cool.
Now, your brother, he said he wished he found these when he was in, was he Air Force? He was in the Air Force, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He wished he could have found the commando pin. He would have put that on his uniform until somebody figured it out. See,
well, he was an officer. He could get away with that. That there would be consequences if I did something like that.
All those are cool. All those 4 and the previous 4. If I ever see one at a show, it's going to be hard for me to turn them down. I'd be forking out some money.
How high would you go? Would you part with a Hundy for one?
No, not that much. I'm too cheap for that.
What if it's still in the box?
But they were sealed in the box. They were packaged. They were about 30, 35. Not a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, we can mow some lawns and part with that.
I could sell some more toys for that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you got like 2 forts over there. Just sell one of those forts and get yourself some pins.
All right, Jason. Any closing thoughts?
Just wanted to say thank you for inviting me on the show. What a lot of fun it was. Not just the show, but preparing for the show. Gave me an excuse to pull my trade off the shelf and read through some Larry Hama goodness. So thank you.
Glad to have you on. I'm sure you'll be invited back again. Hey, I'd like to get a couple of guys on and see how the discussion goes. It'd be interesting to have some different thoughts on it.
Yeah, probably go for about 3 hours if it's as interesting as these books.
And the next 6 are, you got a filler.
Silent interlude in there.
Yeah, that one's going to be, that one might be its own episode. All right. So let's close out. Thank you for joining Jason and myself for this episode of G.I. Joe Outpost. Jason, thank you for spending time discussing some great comics. And if our listeners wanted to contact you, where can they find you?
Well, you can find me at the Longbox Network. Just look up Longbox Crusade. I'm also hovering around on Her Majesty's Secret Podcast. And if you want to talk with me individually, one-on-one, you can find me at Jason Alberich on Threads and Jason Alberich on Instagram.
All right. And you can find me on Facebook as Jim Miel, Jimmiel, as well on Facebook, Timbers Toys and Customs. That's where I share a lot of the G.I. Joe stuff that's coming out, some of the toy shows I'm going to be at. I just shared recently that I backed Dan Klingensmith's Creating G.I. Joe, the last few books. I've been waiting for him to kickstart these because there's 15 volumes and it's cheaper to get them all at once from him than try to go on eBay. So I did the all in for 15 volumes. So I got to sell some before that Kickstarter comes due. By the time this episode comes out, the Kickstarter will be over. But if you can get a hold of any of those books, I've seen a couple of them and they're really amazing. Also, you can find me on X as Jim the Joe Junkie. I want to thank everyone at the Longbox Crusade Network for adding G.I. Joe Outpost to their extensive line of shows. Take a listen to all the other shows that are on the Longbox Crusade on any podcatcher or on YouTube. And if you like what you hear, go to Patreon and become a Crusader Club member where you get all the access. So join us next time where we will be discussing more episodes of the Sunbow G.I. Joe cartoon.
Yo, Joe.
The music themes for this show are done by musical genius Joe November. Please check out his SoundCloud at Josephline99. That's Josephline99. You will not regret it.